Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us this evening. We're going to do some quick introductions before we jump into today's info session and just welcome everyone. Again, my name is Mara Gilliard, and I serve as the Director of Programs and Partnerships in Houston. I oversee the programming in Texas, and I am just very excited to be here with each of you tonight on this call. And so I will hand it over to my colleague, Chris.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Chris Espinosa. I'm the Director of Programs and Partnerships for Massachusetts. So I am just really excited to be here and can't wait to get started. I'll pass it over to Jose.
Thank you, Chris. Buenas tardes, everyone. My name is Jose Magana, and I proudly serve as the founding executive director for Latinos for Education Bay Area. Really excited to be joining you all in community today. And please, again, feel free to drop questions in the Q&A, and we'll drop links in the chat to keep folks engaged. I'll pass it back over to my colleagues.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. So in today's agenda, today we will talk about, we'll start with an overview of Latinos for Education. We'll talk about the two fellowships, Latinx Teacher Fellowship and the Aspiring Latino Leaders Fellowship. And as Jose mentioned, please feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A section, but we will have the second part of today's info session will be dedicated to answering some questions and providing the opportunity for you to ask any questions that you might have regarding the programming and the organization. So thank you, everyone, and we'll go ahead and get started. Righty. So at Latinos for Education, we know that our work is important because Latinos are the second largest ethnic group in the United States and one of the fastest growing groups in the nation. And because of that, we know that there are many compounding inequities faced by Latino students, the same barriers that create large representation gaps of Latino leaders in the education sector. Our population is not only growing, but it's also spreading across the country, and the representation of Latinos educator is essential for the growing of Latino students in the classrooms. And as you can tell, almost 33% of students in K through 12 public classrooms in the year 2025 will identify as Latino. But that number is not the same for Latino educators, Latino teachers, principals, Latino superintendents, and Latino board members. In Texas and in California, Latino students already account for more than 50% of the student population, and it is possible that within your districts, that number might be even higher. So at Latinos for Education, we believe that if we increase the number of Latinos across all levels of the education sector, then they can support and create policy changes that support Latino students in positive ways. So with that, we're happy to share more about our vision. RD, for some reason, I apologize, I cannot see the screen. Are we in the mission? Perfect, thank you. And for that reason, at Latinos for Education, our mission is to develop, place, and connect essential Latino leaders in the education sector while mobilizing the Latino voices to promote practices and policies that remove barriers to equitable educational opportunities. And for that reason, we are happy to have leaders like yourselves on this call so that we can share how you can support to advance the mission at Latinos for Education and how you can become part of the Latinos for Education familia and network. And we'll get started with the Latinx Teacher Fellowship. The Latinx Teacher Fellowship is a 9-month program that supports Latinx pre-K to 12 classroom teachers in Massachusetts, Houston, and the Bay Area. It empowers Latinx educators to leverage their identity. So I saw a question in the Q&A that you weren't really sure what program you wanted to go into, and the Latinx Teacher Fellowship empowers Latinx educators to leverage their identity. It also focuses on learning about the best practices to improve effectiveness and become stronger advocates for students. This culturally responsive professional development opportunity helps teachers build a network of Latinx teachers locally and nationally. Some of these session topics are the state of Latino education, how students are performing in our regions and across the country, Also, how to effectively engage families of color, and AI in the classroom, which is a topic that we can't afford to ignore in this current moment. The ideal candidate for this program is a teacher that identifies as Latinx with 1 to 4 years of experience and somebody that will be a classroom teacher in the upcoming school year. So in 2024 and 2025, a teacher with a passion and a track record of supporting and fostering strong academic student achievement, and a teacher who works with a large population of multilingual learners is highly encouraged to apply to this program. If we go to the next section, I will give you guys a couple of seconds to take a look at the program dates and timelines, and then I'll voice over some important information. The sessions for the Latinx Teacher Fellowship run from September through May in all of the 3 regions, but each have different kickoff dates. So as you can tell, the kickoff dates are on the left, beginning with Houston on Saturday, September the 7th. And each of the Latinx Teacher Fellowship sessions are on Tuesday, but it is important to note that the kickoff date and the closing session are in-person sessions and are also on a Saturday. We can go to the next slide. So let's talk about the program fee and application deadline. 2 important pieces of information. And again, if you have any questions about any of this information, please make sure that you capture that in the chat, and we will certainly answer them as we see fit, or absolutely at the end of today's session. But the application, the fellows pay an individual fee of $100, which is due at the time that the fellow accepts to participate in our fellowship. And this fee helps to cover the overall cost of the program. The remainder of the cost is subsidized through an organizational partnership that pays $1,500 per fellow, and then also through scholarship support. I will hand it over to my colleague Chris to talk about our second fellowship.
Awesome. Thank you, Mara. I appreciate it. Sorry, I was having trouble finding my mute button. You would think after all these virtual sessions, I would know where that is. Anyway, we're here. And I am very excited to talk about our Aspiring Latino Leaders Fellowship today. While I love all of our programs dearly, I will say that our Aspiring Latino Leaders Fellowship has a special place in my heart because I was actually part of our inaugural 2017 cohort in Massachusetts when Latinos for Education first launched. So as I am going through this, if you have any questions, I'm happy to talk about my experience both as the director for Massachusetts, but also as an alumni and a fellow. Always happy to answer any questions that folks have about that. So getting into some of the information about the Aspiring Latino Leaders Fellowship, the difference here is that the Aspiring Latino Leadership Fellowship is a 9-month program. And this is a program that really focuses on education leaders and looking to advance their leadership journey and expand their spheres of influence so that more students can succeed. Fellows will deepen their connection to their Latinx identity, build knowledge around education policy and advocacy, and communicate their values through the public narrative framework. So for those of you who are familiar with Marshall Gantz's public narrative framework, that is kind of the foundation of our program. And really through this whole 9-month experience, we are hoping that our fellows are able to really ground in their identity and learn how to best use that and cultivate that in their place of employment, so that they can not only expand educational opportunities for their staff, but their districts and the different places that they work. One of the things that's really different about this fellowship compared to some of our other fellowships is that this fellowship really brings folks together from all over the education sector. So while while the majority of our fellows come from K-12 districts, not all of them do. We bring in folks from higher education, from education nonprofits, and ed tech and other education sectors like that. So it's a big part of what I really love about this program, because you get to have the experience of learning from people that come from all different areas of the education sector. So some of the session topics are posted below. I'm happy to go into more detail about any of them if anyone has questions. But I think we can go ahead and move on to the next section. I already started talking a little bit about this, but our kind of candidate profile for this program is somebody who identifies as Latino, obviously, Latinx, but also somebody who has been in the education space for a while. We look for folks that have around 8 years worth of experience, that are in mid-level to senior level positions in educational organization, and then obviously working within Massachusetts, the greater Houston area, or the Bay Area in California. One thing I also like to push for folks is this is also a really great place for experienced teachers that are looking to make the jump into administration. We get a lot of folks that have kind of been in the classroom for a long time, looking to make that jump, but not always really sure how or when, or some of those things. And this tends to be a really great program to help them with that. So we can go ahead and go on to our schedule for the program. So similarly to our Latinx Teacher Fellowship, we will be starting in September at a kind of a staggered launch date. You can see all of the kickoff retreats on the left-hand side. And one of the things to notice about this program is that this is a 3-day retreat. So this kind of begins on a Friday evening after work hours. We will provide accommodations, we'll provide food, obviously, for your stay there. And then you will be in an all-day session on Saturday, and then Sunday, the retreat ends usually fairly early, right around lunchtime. So something to keep in mind for folks thinking about travel and all those kinds of responsibilities. So that's the launch retreat. So different from or similar to our LTF fellowship, our sessions are always going to take place on the first Friday of every month, with the caveat of occasionally there's a holiday that comes in there. So that's why you'll see January 10th. It's a little later than the first Friday of the month, but generally we try to keep it around the first Friday of every single month for the 9 weeks, the 9 months of the fellowship. And then we have a different type of program. So we are a hybrid program for this. So that means that, as you can see here, some of the sessions are noted as being in person, and then some of them are going to be virtual. And the nice piece about the virtual sessions is that this is a really great opportunity for fellows to collaborate across regions. So we make sure that there are spaces within each of those virtual sessions where our fellows in Massachusetts, for example, get the opportunity to engage with folks in California, in Houston, and share some of the different experiences, the challenges, the solutions that they're all seeing in their different regions, and share them across the fellowship. So that is our program dates and timeline. You can see on the right-hand side the actual hours of those sessions taking place. And then when we look at the next slide, we'll go into the program fees and application deadline. So our priority deadline is Friday, April 12th. And so the final deadline for this program is going to be May 10th. So those are really important deadlines for you to kind of keep in mind. We really try to encourage folks to submit their applications by the priority deadline. That really helps when we're going through all of the different applications, and we want to make sure that you have the best chance of being selected for this year's cohort. As for the program fee, so this one does have a little bit higher of a cost because of the nature of the fellowship. So fellows will pay an individual fee of $300 to participate in the program, which is due when the fellows accept their offer to participate. This fee is a reduced rate from the overall cost of the program, and it helps to cover the cost of trainings, the retreat, the material, catering at all the in-person sessions, things like that. And the cost is obviously subsidized through organization partners that pay $2,500 per fellow. So that is not the cost that you would be responsible for in applying for the program. That's the subsidized rate for folks. So just to make sure there's no confusion there. And then I believe that brings me to the end of my section. And so that will bring us to some testimonials. So I will just go ahead and make sure that they are brought up to the stage. So I am very excited to introduce our first, actually, I'm going to let her introduce herself for the most part. But our first guest speaker here is a fellow that is very special to me because she was in the Massachusetts cohort last year. So without further ado, maybe we can do some virtual claps, at least from our staff over here, and bring Maria up to the stage and let her give a chance to introduce herself.
Chris, are you talking about me?
Yeah, I'm talking about you a little bit.
But there's no video. But everybody can hear me, right?
We can see your screen if you turned on your video, yes, and we can hear you.
So you guys can see me?
Oh, we cannot actually see you now.
Okay, that's okay, but you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Awesome. So yes, I was part of last year's group for the Aspiring Latino Leaders. For me, it was completely life-changing. I feel like it just empowered me to kind of be motivated to really be a leader in the community and in the work that I do. I'm an adjustment counselor for one of the districts in Massachusetts. And this year I started a diversity committee through our district. It's been going really well. I'm really excited to kind of keep it going and getting people involved, getting the community involved. So some really great things have kind of come from this fellowship. I think it also helped me identify areas where I wasn't too sure about. Like I always knew that I wanted to be a leader and I wanted to kind of be a leader in education, but I wasn't sure like where. But it really helped me identify, like, I like policy. I'm strong in policy. That's where I want to be. That's where I want to advocate. And the fellowship really helped me in that. And also like the friendships that we've made was awesome. Being in trainings with all Latinos is something that I've never experienced before. It is something that I probably will never experience again other than this fellowship. So it was a life-changing situation for me. I highly, highly recommend it. And this is my daughter running in, so I apologize. Yes.
Upstairs?
Yes, you can go to the bathroom.
Wait, can I go upstairs?
That was it.
Mom?
Awesome. Thank you, Maria. And tell your little one over there I said hi. And so I think that is going to lead us into our Q&A section. So we're going to go ahead and look at the chat. So if there are any lingering questions that you all have, this is a great time. I think we'll give everyone like a minute or two just to think through and type in your questions into the chat. And then maybe we can read a few out loud and walk through some of those.
Yeah, to clarify, I think the chat is disabled, but the Q&A feature on the side, please use that to type in your questions and we can have our team answer aloud. Please, we all can read the questions and then answer them aloud. And then also, if you would like to take yourself off mute and ask your question instead, please just raise your hand and I can work to see if I can get you off mute so that you can ask the question aloud.
I can ask the first question. I see a question here from one of the participants. And the question says, how many fellows are accepted? And if I technically won't be a classroom teacher at a school, I should apply for the Aspiring Latino Leader Fellowship, even if I do teach students through a nonprofit. That is the first question. The answer, oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, do you want to answer or do you want me?
You can, I can.
I can take the first one. All right, so this one is a little bit different based on regions, but I would say that generally speaking, we usually have between 20 and 25 fellows per cohort. Now, this kind of changes a little bit year to year based on the makeup of the applicants that we get, and kind of just doing our best to make sure that we have a really robust cohort experience and a balance between the different experience levels and the different roles and the different districts that we are pulling our applicants from. But generally speaking, I would say 20 to 25 is about the range that we shoot for. And as far as the second part of your question, That one's a little different. So I guess without knowing exactly what you're teaching, what my guess is if you're working for an education nonprofit and you may have like a teaching component to your role, I still think that most likely the best fit for you is going to be for our Aspiring Latino Leaders Fellowship. Just going off of the nonprofit piece, that's what my assumption would be. But this is always something that you can reach out to. I can probably go back and look and see what region you are from, but my recommendation would be to reach out to the regional director. So if you're in Houston, that would be Mara. If you're in Massachusetts, that would be me. And if you're in California, that would be Jose. And what we would be able to do is you can kind of give us a little bit more information about that. Or you could even just put it back in the chat and we can answer it again. But reach out to us if you have questions about where you're working, what you're working, and what fellowship is the right fit for you. Always feel free to reach out to us because we can always work on those on a one-off basis. But I would say that would be my assumption based on the information I have. Anything to add, Mata, Jose, RD, anything I missed?
Great. Any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand or type it in the Q&A chat.
Looks like we got a raised hand.
Yep. Maria, can you talk?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. I was the one that asked that question. Sorry to ask so many questions, but I'm really interested in this program. So I do teach, I'm a program manager for 11th and 12th graders at Breakthrough. It's called Breakthrough Houston. So I'm in the Houston area. And part of my job, we have like monthly events where we teach materials to students, which is related to like the college admissions, applications, college essays, things like that. So that is where I'm a little confused just as to if I should apply for the teaching side or Aspiring Latino Leaders, because I've never been a teacher. So I don't have that teaching experience in a school setting.
Yeah, I can answer that. So based on that information, the Aspiring Latino Leaders Fellowship is the right fit, and that is the program that you should submit your application. I will also share with you my email, and we can also share that through a follow-up email so that you can reach out to me if you have any questions as you go through the application. And I'm also happy to hop on a call with you for a conversation as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. Appreciate it.
Right, and it looks like we got another question in. I can go ahead and read this one since Mara took the last one. So the next question in our Q&A is, I worked all my life as a leader in education in Latin America. And since I arrived to the US 5 years ago, I struggle to find my professional path back to the education sector. Do you think I am suitable for this program? So this is another one where with the limited information I have, my suggestion would probably be, yeah, I think this would be a good program for you. You have the experience working in a classroom. I would say that ALF is probably the better option because depending on what your current work is. So if your current work is still teaching in some capacity, then maybe LTF is the better choice. But if you are looking at trying to get back into education or you work kind of in an adjacent field, it might be a good opportunity for you. Still need a little bit more information to answer fully, but my suspicion is that you're probably still working in some kind of education capacity. And in that case, I think it would be a really good fit. A lot of our program is around networking and building that collective community within our program. And so making sure that our fellows are constantly engaged with, not only their cohort mates, but also within different leaders within the education space in the different regions. And so I think this is a really good networking opportunity that may be able to help you kind of further the path that you're on, or find a way to get back onto the path that you want to be on. Again, this might be one of those one-off situations where you might want to reach out to your regional director and they can kind of help you further. Just based on that limited information, that would be my suspicion for you.
Thank you for answering that, Chris. We'll give another minute or two if folks have a few more questions. I'll give a little wait time for folks to ask a few more questions by raising your hand or submitting them in the chat.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for some more questions to go through, one of the things I would recommend to anybody that's on the call is that if you want to check out some more of the resources that Latinos for Education offers, going to our online site, Ed Centro, is a really great, and maybe one of my colleagues can put the link in the chat or in the Q&A or something for me while I explain it. But the last question really had me thinking about it. And I think Ed Centro is a really great opportunity for you to get connected with all the different workings that happen at Latinos for Education. We kind of joke that it's our Latino LinkedIn. You do not need to be in any of our programs to join. It's free to join. Anybody can get access to it. We are always posting different job opportunities from, different places in all of our regions. So we have different partners that will, share job postings with us, and we advertise them for those partners. We are always doing things like professional development opportunities, info sessions, virtual sessions for different learning topics, and connect you to any of the partners that we have doing sessions. So it's a really great knowledge hub, and it's a really great way to connect with others in your community, because you can kind of search other folks by region, just kind of like you would do in LinkedIn. And this is a really great way for you to kind of look. So if you are kind of thinking about a different path, or you're trying to figure out what your next step is in education, it's a really great resource that you can check out that is, like I said, free, and something that you don't actually have to go through one of our programs to get access to. Registering for it takes 10 seconds. It's pretty quick. Thanks, Elvira. And Mara.
All right, any other questions? I actually think we have one of our alums from the Latinx Teacher Fellowship that joined. Let me just double check. There we go. Sophia, are you here?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, your name came up incorrect, but we can hear you. So thank you for joining us. I know you joined us a little bit late, but I wanted to make sure you had some time. We were just going through some Q&A questions, as well as hearing from some testimonials from alumni. And we would love it if you could just take a minute or two just to share a little bit about your experience with the Latinx Teacher Fellowship.
Yeah, for sure. So, hola a todos. My name is Sofia Gonzalez, and I was the 2021 Latinx Teacher Fellow. And I had a really interesting role in that I was the only national fellow. So I represent Chi-Town, which was really exciting. And I don't even know where to begin, y'all. I need like an hour, 2 hours. I'm just kidding. But I will say this, it was a very transformative experience for me, both personally and professionally. And as a Latina, first off and foremost, I would like to talk about how this fellowship really helped me to access my Latina identity. I think it's really important to really amplify that whole notion that these fellowships with L4E really do an incredible job at amplifying the Latino voice, the Latina voice, the Latinx voice, and just really giving us an opportunity to access our power, to access our agency. When I first joined the fellowship, I had heard for the first time that I was my ancestors' wildest dreams. And that was it for me. Like, as a Mexican, as a daughter of immigrants, like, that really just set my soul on fire. And I have been leading from that space ever since. In addition to that, just gaining access to an affinity space was life-changing. We all know, you know, in the K-12 space specifically, that the Latinx presence is very underrepresented. And so with that being said, there is a lot of, you know, feeling siloed, feeling alone, feeling like you're the only in a lot of these spaces. And for me to join a space where, man, just even entering the Zoom and in these meetings, we were playing salsa, merengue. I was like, what's happening here? Like, yes, y'all are my people. Just even that, those connections, and then just, you know, having space being held for you to tell your lived experiences, to really unpack the microaggressions, the implicit biases, feeling overlooked, and just really just having that space, that affinity space was like a game changer for me. And then last but not least, this fellowship was literally the springboard for me to catapult into other national fellowships like Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms, where I went to India as the only Latina in that space. You're welcome. Half tortilla, half tostone was all up in there. They were blessed. Urban Leaders Fellowship, I was able to crack into policy and practice in 2022 and spent a summer in Washington, D.C. And now currently I'm a school ambassador fellow with the U.S. Department of Education. Again, the only Latina represented in that space at a federal level. And I give credit to Latinos for Education for empowering me, for amplifying my voice, for elevating me. And I will say this, and then you could turn off my mic. Okay, you're gonna have to turn off my mic, RD, because it's serious. Y'all know how much love I got for y'all. Just the resources. Have you ever said to yourself as an educator, as a leader, man, if only I had the resources, man, if only I had somebody to back me up. And as they say, back where I come from, put something on it. Latinos for Education has done just that, from getting me in spaces to, you know, helping me gain access to scholarships, to just really supporting me with resources. I have been able to do incredible things. And now I'm a national speaker. I'm a national fellow. I'm with the U.S. Department of Education. And this is only the beginning. I end with this. My favorite value from the Latinos for Education set of values is agitate when necessary. And now I have coined myself as a disruptor and an agitator. Con ganas we can. Y'all, this is the space. This is where it's at. I am incredibly blessed to be part of the Latinos for Education familia. Thank you for hearing my story.
Thank you so much, Sophia. We really appreciate you telling that story, as well as just both of our alumni for just sharing your stories and how these programs have impacted you all. So we really, really appreciate your time, and thank you all for coming and sharing that. Chris?
Awesome. Yeah. So we got another question in the chat. So the question is, how much time do we have from the moment we get the offer to accept and pay the fee for the fellowship? So this one is a good question, and we get a lot of questions about this. So I'm glad somebody brought it up. So generally speaking, we do have I would say that we usually give at least a week for the matriculation process. So that's after you've gotten accepted into the program, and you'll have a period of time. When you get that initial offer, like saying, hey, you've been invited to join the fellowship, we will give you like a specific date that you need to return the offer by. And so, you know, sometimes if there's like a delay in like the interview process, or, you know, something like that happens, sometimes we might push the date back a little bit, but in that letter, we will always tell you exactly what date you need to accept the offer by. So that's always really important to make sure that you keep in mind. So once it arrives, they'll tell you, but generally we give you about a week to make your final decision. And so that is the first part of the question. The next part of the question is, how long do you have to pay the fee? So this is something that generally we are trying to get all payments done by October. And so that's one of the big deadlines that we are always trying to push. And that just helps us make sure that we get all of our bookkeeping done on schedule. However, we never want finances to be the barrier to your participation in these programs. And so, you know, if that is a financial burden, if that is something that like you need more time, you need like a payment plan to work out or something like that, we're always happy to work with you on those things. So never feel like that should be a barrier. Make sure you reach out to your regional director. Like if this is a situation where you're like, hey, like here's what I can do. we'll find a way to work with you. So in those situations and in those circumstances, it's always best to just like communicate with us early and often so that we can make sure that we get you the support you need so that it doesn't become like this extra burden. Y'all, we're in education. We got enough burdens to worry about. Like, I get it. So make sure you're reaching out to us and keeping us posted if that's something that's a concern for you.
Thank you for sharing that, Chris. And yes, I just want to continue to reiterate that if questions come up like that too, also just through the application process or as you're looking into it, please reach out. Our team is more than happy to talk with you up front or just throughout the process to make sure that we're answering questions for you along the way and making sure that we're working to support you as best we can. All right, I'm going to pause again just to see if we have any more questions come in. So if you do, feel free to put it in the Q&A chat, or if you want to raise your hand, you can do that and I will take you off mute. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions come in if anyone else does have anything, this is going to be a last chance. Feel free to raise your hand or type something in. But as we start to close out, then I'm just going to pass it over to folks, Mara, Chris, Jose, if there's anything else you'd like to say as we end this, please.
I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for spending this evening with us and being here to learn more about our programming. We would be more than happy to connect with every single one of you, and I just highly encourage you to reach out to us as the regional directors and the executive director in California. We're more than happy to connect with you and answer any questions that you might have that maybe were not answered in this session. But again, I just really want to emphasize how grateful we are to have you guys interested in our programming, but also being here because you're interested in creating positive changes for Latino students and families. And we want to thank you for all the work that you do, because we know that, as Sophia mentioned, being in the classroom is not an easy task, and the work that you do is so impactful. So thank you, and I'll hand it over to Chris.
Mara took the words right out of my mouth and made them better. She always does. So I just want to reiterate, thank you all for being here tonight. We're really excited in your interest in joining our familia. So, if you're in Massachusetts, I can't wait to get your application. I can't wait to meet you. And if you're in one of our other regions, still, I'm going to see you virtually. So I am so excited about this next cohort. I think we're going to have an amazing group of folks just from, the initial applications that we've gotten and a lot of the buzz that's going around with these programs. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Jose for any final words.
My colleagues are phenomenal at closing us out. But again, I just want to really emphasize what Chris and Mara are saying. If you have any questions, please reach out and we'll happily answer them and provide any guidance that we can. Pass it over to Artie.
Great. I also just want to say thank you all for joining today. We will receive a follow-up from this conversation, and we will make sure to also send you the contact information for all of the regional contacts here on this call so that you can reach out. And just a reminder that the priority deadline is this Friday. So please take a look at the application this week. And if you can submit it this Friday, we would love to see that your application come in by the end of the week. Thank you all again for joining. We very much appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening.